In this video, I'm going to draw the anatomy of a bony fish in the Actinopterygii, which is part of that paraphyletic group known as the Osteichthyes. Okay, so first of all, we're going to draw kind of just a generic fish shape by drawing kind of like a pair of parentheses on their side. And I'm going to put the mouth at this end, and this end's going to have what we think of as the tail of the fish. And there's a lot of diversity as to what these tail fins may look like in fish, but that's all right. And it kind of ends there. So fish, bony fish, have a certain number of fins. So we're going to draw all of the kind of normal fins in there that fish typically have. It may vary a little bit. Sometimes they might have an adipose fin back here in the trout. But we're going to draw in the 5 fins that we see in all fish. And I'm going to draw one kind of, it's kind of coming out at us. Try to clean that up a little bit. These are the most the fins that are found on fish most all the time. So we've got here a dorsal fin. This, you might know it as a tail fin, but I'm gonna call it a caudal fin. C-A-U-D-A-L. That's the Latin word root that means tail. The Greek word root that means tail is euro, letter U-R-O. And we see both of those being used in the amphibians, where caudata is the order of amphibians that have tails, salamanders, newts, axolotls, and the like, and the anura are the frogs. Anura means anura without a tail, so that would be frogs and toads and things like that. I hope you remember. Back here we've got an anal fin, and this is the pelvic fin. And up here, right by the operculum, we've got the pectoral fin. Okay, a couple more details of the external anatomy. That, of course, is the fish's eye. There would be another one on the other side. That is the mouth. And this structure here it's like a lid for the gills, and its name is that same word that we've seen that means lid, the operculum that covers the gills. Okay, just a couple more details of the external anatomy before we get into the guts of this thing. So this line doesn't actually exist in a live fish. It's just kind of drawing here what we would see on the outside of the fish. Bony fish have this sensory structure called a lateral line. And that lateral line is very sensitive to changes in water currents, so it can detect motion. They're also very chemosensory. They can detect vibration. So very important for fish to have that. Think about like a large school of fish and how they all seem to move as if they have one fish mind controlling hundreds and hundreds of fish. Well, that's not really what's going on. What's really going on is they have these lateral lines that are very sensitive to the motion of all their neighbors around them, which keep them from bumping into each other. Another thing we see in fish, bony fish, is they are scaly. So trying to surround that lateral line. I'm going to put a whole bunch of these ctenoid scales on here. Now, bony fish have different types of scales from cartilaginous fish like sharks and rays and skates. Cartilaginous fish have what are known as placoid scales, or denticles, which means tiny little teeth. Shark skin is rough, and in fact, in the South Pacific, that roughness was actually used to advantage. They would use shark skin as a type of sandpaper, or we use sandpaper for shark skin. All right, I'm trying not to be lazy and drawing in all these scales. They have a much more orderly overlapping pattern than I am giving them credit for. But my drawing, it's always a struggle not to get lazy at the end of our efforts here in drawing in the fish scales. Start making them really big or really spaced out. All right, that is fine-ish. Okay, so these, as I mentioned, would be the scales. In bony fish, they are known as comb-like scales or ctenoid scales. And so that's about it for the external anatomy of our fish. We can draw some details on that pectoral fin there. Now we're going to get into the internal anatomy of our fish. Starting with, I'm going to draw kind of like a peanut shape here. That is the fish's brain. And the brain actually does have a spinal column that extends up into the head. Oops, I got my lines crossed there. That's okay. Into the spinal cord. And the spinal cord does, the skull attaches to, I'm just going to draw around that spinal cord a series of vertebrae. So I'm just kind of drawing little like lens shapes kind of along, covering, protecting the spinal cord. So those would be your fish backbones or vertebrae. We are, after all, in the vertebrata. There we go. Okay. So kind of behind our pectoral fin, covered up by this operculum. I'm going to kind of try and draw this. So the pectoral fin is part of the external anatomy. Inside there, underneath that operculum, these are the gills. Gills use these, of course, for gas exchange. They're very, very thin, full of capillaries to absorb oxygen from the water and to deposit carbon dioxide into the water, since fish don't have lungs. Kind of extending behind the gills, also leading from the mouth, we've got the stomach, leading to the intestine, and the intestine, kind of easy for me to remember because it kind of looks like a letter Z, and that's going to lead back here to the anus. Letter Z, there we go. All right, so that would be our stomach and our intestine of the fish, leading to the fish's anus. Now I'm leaving a little bit of room there, ventral to the anal fin, or sorry, anterior to the anal fin, because we're going to draw some more parts back in here. Okay. And then just kind of snugged up against the intestine here, that is going to be the fish's liver. And then anterior to that, kind of trying to do this justice. Kind of looks a little bit like a hat the way I draw it. This is the fish's heart, which is a 2-chambered heart. And I'm going to draw kind of a evolutionary look at the development of hearts in another video. Okay, what else do we have? We also have a couple more organs, one that's kind of, so we're going to snug 2 organs in here between the stomach and the vertebral column. One's going to kind of look like that. And that is going to be, draw it all out here, the swim bladder. Swim bladder helps regulate buoyancy, so it can be full of air or it can be depleted of air depending on whether the fish wants to swim up in the water column or dive deeper into the water column. It is thought that the swim bladder is homologous with lungs, but whether lungs develop from the swim bladder or the swim bladder develop from lungs is kind of up in the air moment. We're not really sure. Of course, these structures don't really fossilize, so a lot of that work studying that is relying on other tools. Okay, behind our swim bladder, I'm going to tuck another organ in back here. And that is going to lead to the second of 3 openings. Where am I going to have this come out? I'm going to pop it out this direction. There we go. So it doesn't cross any other lines. That is the fish's kidney. So they are able to filter out metabolic wastes and excrete them through a urinary bladder. And we've got one more structure to tuck in here, which is going to make it lumpy because it is lumpy. And that will be the fish's gonad. Now, fish gonads. Fish are dioecious, so there are male and female fish, but there's some very interesting twists on that. For example, in social fish like the clown anemone fish, if a female dies within a group of anemone fish, then the largest male will convert into a female, and she will be able to lay eggs and be fertilized by the other males in the group, and that allows the social group to kind of persist in light of that. So, we have a gonad here, but is it testes? Is it an ovary? It's really kind of a little bit more plastic than that in the fishes. But all three of these openings, the gonad, the anus, and the urinary bladder, they all empty out of the same point on the fish's body, which is called the cloaca, which I'm not gonna draw and label. Okay, maybe I will. So we kind of have a one kind of multi-purpose orifice there, which is the cloaca, and we see cloacas in a lot of other vertebrates. Birds typically have a cloaca, for example, and reptiles do as well. So let me see. I think I've got all of our parts in there. That's a good number of parts, that's for sure. Anything important that I'm missing? I don't think so. So there you have your external anatomy and your internal anatomy of a bony fish. And we'll see what we can draw next time.